SPY is down another 2%, trading at 564.45, and we called this out as Discord members and myself had stayed in our puts over the weekend, at least some of us. I posted the positions, I've stayed in the puts, I've remained in the puts, I've remained bearish on the SPY. I've told you that it is not set up for a rebound, no matter how many times people are calling for a V-shaped recovery. However, is that time near? Are we going to see a V-shaped recovery? Let's talk about it. First things first, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn post notifications on, as well as drop a comment down below what number like you are. Okay, so we are seeing the total for the SPY down 8%, 8.14% from its all-time high. So we are not even in a technical correction territory, down 10%. Yes, we have seen little corrections of 4%, 6%, but now we are passing that, hitting the 8% correction territory, which makes me think that we are at least going to get that 10% correction, which brings you down to the 555 range. However, let's talk about some levels. Can we go further than that? Will we hit the 555 range? First of all, before I show you that, let's talk about what's actually happening. Obviously, tariffs. The tariffs are causing a lot of uncertainty. It's causing uncertainty as to, is Trump going to raise tariffs? How high is he going to bring them up? Because he's basically said that tariffs aren't going to go away. They're not going to get lower, but they may go higher. He said this, right? So he has said basically, I'm not watching the stock market and I have tariffs in place. And if you don't like these tariffs, it's going to be a bad time for you, because these tariffs are likely going to be raised in the future. They're not going to come down anytime soon. Okay, so that's one thing. And that is going to lead to not only, first of all, there is overvaluation in plenty of stocks. The stock market is overvalued. All of the Magnificent Seven, for the most part, are overvalued, depending on what PE ratio you want to buy at, right? But this is not only showing that they're undervalued, but now that the tariffs, uncertainty, and everything is in, it also causes uncertainty as to how overvalued are they and what are the returns going to be with these tariffs in place, right? This causes uncertainty for businesses, monopoly companies. We're seeing basically de-risking, because we're not going to know how this is going to affect these companies' earnings. And you're not gonna want to know until at least a quarter comes out that shows how the companies performed with these tariffs in place. On top of that, the Atlanta Fed's real-time economic tracker suggests the U.S. economy might already be shrinking, and Goldman Sachs cut its 2025 GDP forecast from 2.2% to 1.7%, expecting weaker growth in the future. Okay, we also see business surveys indicating pessimism and slowing activity across multiple industries. Right. And then we also know the AI and tech bubble was extremely overheated. Okay, so back to the S&P 500, 564.07, down 2%. We have seen day in and day out, they don't like to let this thing close down more than 2%. Anytime it comes down 2%, you can basically grab 0 DTE calls and ride them up and then sell them for an easy profit. Every time it gets down 2%, you get some sort of bounce. We got that very temporarily today. You're not going to see it in the charts because we're on the 4 hour, right? But ultimately, we came into this zone. Now, this zone is between 564.80 and 560.80. What this zone tells us is that there's a lot of buyers here, and that's why you saw a wick right around 563.60, because you've seen people basically buying this up, whether it's retail, whether it's institutions, it's likely retail. We saw people buying this up. Now, if the SPY at any point cracks beneath 560.90 or 560.80, the floor can fall beneath it. I think if we break under 560.80, it's pretty easy confirmation, simple confirmation that you're getting to 556.90 or 555. And at that point, I would still call that a somewhat weak support, not too weak. I would call it weak support because we kind of already cracked critical support at 570. And if that support didn't hold up, I don't see this holding up, especially if we crack under the 560 level. So basically, watch for the SPY to crack under 560. If we crack under 560, watch it for the floor to come out and come down to 550 potentially. At this point, you have a large buy zone. Once we get to 550, you need another catalyst. That's not tariffs. That's something else. You need some sort of other bearish catalyst to continue to get continuation past the 10% correction territory to enter a bear market, right? And that will take you essentially, if we crack beneath this large buy zone between 544 and 550, that will bring you to 523 to 510. Okay, and then you have large blocks down here right around 508, all the way up to 515. Okay, so that's what we're looking at for the SPY. As far as lottery stocks, will we get a bounce? Let's bring up the daily real quick. If we look at the daily, we are not seeing as much volume as we would want to see on this sell-off. Okay, markets are already in extreme fear. And based on this gap down, this drop down, we're not seeing as much volume as we want to see. We're seeing people buy it up. What I can tell you is volume will increase if we crack beneath 560. But right now, I think we're in a place where, yes, the catalysts of uncertainty are there, but are they there enough to continue to push us lower? So I don't know what it is, but I think Trump has to come out and talk, or Powell has to come out and talk, or we need some sort of catalyst, even if it's an excuse like we saw with DeepSeek, to crank up that volatility again. As far as Bitcoin goes, here is something that's very bothersome. Real quick, I'll just tell you personally, right? I told Discord last night I'm entering a long on Bitcoin when it was around 82 with leverage up to 84,500 take profit. It came up to 84,150, which is very aggravating. Missed my take profit. I shouldn't have raised it that high, right? But I thought we would see some momentum up there. We couldn't quite get that. Now we're coming back down and we're testing 80,250, and we cracked beneath it earlier, wicking down below 80K, which is important for Bitcoin. I think a lot of people took shorts here, then it came up and got stopped out once again. Bitcoin is fighting for its life at these levels. It is down, has been down a total of 28.4% from its highs. Now the previous cycles, the previous bull cycles, you can see Bitcoin right here before making an all-time high, right? Retraced in February of 2021, early March, 26% total. Okay, so we're around that same time frame, same percentage gain. Does that mean Bitcoin bottomed out? Not necessarily. If we come and we take a look back prior than that, we've seen a 26 to 27% drawdown right here, right? About a 28 actually percent drawdown right here back in January of 2021. And then ultimately we ended up coming a little bit lower down here, which was down about 32%. Okay, so if we look at the charts and we look at historical patterns, we could be close to a potential bottom. So what does that mean? Everyone calling out for 73K, are they accurate? Are they not accurate? Well, I think it's expected. And if we do wick to 73K, you're likely going to see a pretty quick move back up to regain 100K. As of right now, if this bull cycle is not over, if it is not over, right, whether you see a bounce here at 80 or a bounce at 73, you're likely to top out back at 109 or 116 or 122, right? Somewhere low 100s, okay? I don't see it going too high. As of right now, you can see there are huge sell walls up here. And the reason being is because amidst all this downside volatility, right, investors are now saying, damn, I just want to break even, or I just want a tiny profit. If we get back up here, you're finally going to see some selling, right? Finally some selling, which this is good, because if we enter this selling pressure and we enter another downturn that's a long winter bear market, right? It's going to create new buyers for Bitcoin, and it's going to refresh the sellers or the holders that have been sitting in it for a while. Institutions will refresh money into this thing alongside with the reserve that is going on with the government. Overall, basically, if Bitcoin, again, needs a catalyst like the market to get more volatile, to break back down and wick to 73K, at that point, I think Bitcoin will come down, make its way to 73K as the SPY is making its way to break that 560 level. Okay, so that's what we got for Bitcoin. Before we touch on AMC and GameStop, okay, really quick, I want to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, which is 3D Capital. Take a look at all of these investments that this company is investing in. I want to tell you that this is definitely the cheapest stock I have covered on the channel, with a market cap of $7.6 million right now, trading below $1, trading below 20 cents, sitting at 10 cents a share right now. Now, this is a Canadian venture capital firm focused on early stage investments in disruptive technologies, including blockchain, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence, which aim to capitalize on high growth sectors and emerging companies, offering strategic partnerships and a diversified portfolio, which you can see right here, investments in all of these companies. Now, why is this company a potential investment? Even though the chart looks a little bit scary, you need to do your own due diligence and your own research. As of right now, what I can tell you is that they have exposure to high growth sectors like blockchain and AI, which is already a good plus. Now, they also have potential for significant returns from early stage investments, and their diversified portfolio de-risks them under time of uncertainty, which we are seeing right now. On top of that, they have an experienced management team led by their CEO, Sheldon Inwintosh. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Here is their YouTube channel if you guys want to go subscribe and take a look at the videos. On top of that, the CEO thinks that this is the most heavily shorted, or one of the most heavily shorted Canadian stocks on the market, and has expressed his concerns about short sellers and short selling within the company. Now, alongside their investments, they have an investment in Avcn, which specializes in medical cannabis. On top of everything that we have said about this company, very briefly, how much more room for downside does it actually have? Probably not much. Overall, take a look into 3D Capital. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you are investing in it, I figured I would put it on your radar right now. Thank you guys for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to it. Let's talk about Ethereum, because Ethereum cracked below 2,000. Now, I have told you previously, I've called out the peak on Ethereum, right when it came up past 4K. I've called out the cycle peak, and that is because these cycles are drawn out not close but perfect. Not close but perfect. Okay, so we have seen a drawdown of 74%. This was back April 2018. We've seen a drawdown of right here, and just to show you, I'm looking at the beginning of the blue cycles, 56%. That is back July of 2021. If we come and we take a look at what the SPY did, we saw a 10, almost 11% correction the first time. Then we saw a 6.6 correction. We are dead smack in the middle with an 8% correction right now. What happened following that? Ethereum got a bounce in this cycle, okay, before ultimately crawling back down further. Now, how long did this actually take? Because I would like to know. After the bounce before hitting a new low, 217 days. After the bounce before hitting a new low, 217, 220 days. Okay, so from the low to the peak, looks like 35-day window. From the low to the peak, about a 35, 40-day window. If Ethereum makes a low around mid-March, you're likely to see it bounce into late April, which is when I think things will probably squeeze, right? But this shows you the diminishing returns. It shows you that Bitcoin will likely top out as well and will come back down. And this also shows a perfect setup right here, right? Because you see the sell walls on Ethereum right up here, large sell walls. It's not going to re-crack 3,700, 3,800, right? You're not going to see that. When you see a bounce, I expect that bounce to be at 1,770 or 1,800, which is when you enter these buy zones, which will also be a 56% drawdown. Then you see a bounce up to 36 to 3,800, and then you get out before it crashes further. That's what I wanted to show you with Ethereum. Nothing I say is financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. If we look at GameStop's chart right now, we don't have data because Twitter's down, so we're covering the charts right now and more in-depth coverage of the charts. You can see we are in this descending parallel channel on GameStop. There's a couple of things to point out. First of all, we are still holding the midline on this parallel channel, and if we fail it, you're likely to see a large flush down, because you can see right here when this support doesn't hold, a large flush happens in the chart. And also when you break above it, you also see a massive move up. Right now, based on market conditions, you're likely to flush beneath it, which is perfectly fine, and I'll explain why in a second. But you can see there's a little bit of buying pressure between 2250 and 2280, but I don't see that holding. We might actually see 2160 and a low of 2075 because there's large buy orders down here, and you're likely going to see a flush in the charts. There's not a place where I see us breaking under $20. I just don't see that happening. There's too many buy orders, and there's just no catalyst for it. Right now, we broke under Roaring Kitty's average. I expect him to make a move, buy more, get a wild card in. I don't know what it is, but I expect something to happen because we have now broken under his average. Now, if we flush down, that's okay, because that'll align with things getting very bearish, spooking the markets, in which case will lead up to a potential V-shaped recovery as Ethereum rebounds, potentially the SPY rebounding, and Bitcoin rebounding, but not to make all-time highs. Right? Maybe some of them not to make all-time highs. This leading into late April, right around that April 20th mark that we've talked about, will likely lead us into a potential squeeze or gap ups or something along the lines of that. But right now, things are looking bearish. As far as AMC goes, AMC is holding up pretty well. On the shorter time frame, we have a lot of buys that if AMC breaks under $3, it's a pretty good deal. right? People are buying this up at $3, but if we crack beneath that level at $3 or 290, 260, right, and coming down to 277 to 266, and AMC will likely see a bottom right there. I don't see it going any lower than that, but you can see they are trying to stop any momentum. If AMC gaps higher, there are sell walls everywhere right here, right? As far as AMC goes, this just aligns up with everything else. But one thing that's good with AMC is you're likely to see some sort of catalyst, and AMC doesn't like to climb, it likes to gap. Okay, we've talked about that. It's not like GameStop, it likes to gap. You can see this right here, this random date absolutely gapped higher. I would expect the same thing with these sell walls. We would just gap over them when the squeeze is ready. I don't know if that's, next week. I don't know if that's April, but it likes to gap up. I want to give you guys XRP's chart very quickly because XRP is one of the cryptocurrencies that is actually holding up better than any other cryptocurrency. And what is the reason for that? You have huge order blocks down here. Huge. Okay. People are wanting XRP at this price. They don't want it to go lower, right? Obviously, everyone would want it to go lower so they can scoop it up. But you can see that institutions, people, retail investors are buying when they get the chance. And this is very bullish because this shows a long-term trajectory, great potential for future growth for XRP, and also something we may not know is behind the scenes. Overall, just keep XRP on your list. This is one of the altcoins that I wouldn't mind holding right now at the price that it's at, around 210. I would love it to go lower to 177 and maybe even 135 in an extreme bear market. But right now, there's clearly a roadmap ahead, and this is probably one of the top altcoins, if not the top altcoin to hold in my personal opinion. I want to talk briefly about Tesla. Yesterday, I said this about Tesla. Tesla can even dip into this range sub 240. Right, between 238 and 220. Okay, so watch that. And there's a gap fill, in which case it flushed down and coming right beneath this level. It actually tried to hold there at 238.50, but now it is flushing lower, likely pointing towards a potential gap fill all the way down to 220 on Tesla. Okay, if we remove the drawings, you are not seeing any true supports here. And I see this flush down to 220, bringing the market alongside, right, down to 560, maybe even 555. Okay, so we are still bearish short term for the market. When are we going to see that bounce? I don't think it's yet. Okay, we want to see more volatility to the downside. Nvidia's at 107, trying to hold and recapture this level, but I don't think it's going to happen. I see 102 to 97 bucks on Nvidia, and then that's also where we see some buys. I don't see any true support until then. Palantir is still sub $80, but it got bought up at this region. It's hard to say if Palantir is going to continue to sell off. We may just possibly get a wick, but I don't see it moving into the low support under $70. If it does, watch for a hold at 68 bucks. And if it cracks beneath that, watch for a hold at 62.50. But right now, I just see a wick down here. And I don't think people are going to sell Palantir too rapidly. I also want to state we covered a full long-term portfolio. I want to show you a couple of these very briefly. One of them was Celsius, which the chart looks great. Looks like it bottomed out. Looks like it's about to break out. ELF is up almost 9%. There has been a sell wall here, but it's breaking that sell wall. There is some news that just came out. I didn't look into it. Maybe it's important, maybe it's not. But what we are seeing is that this could be a potential bottom on the stock. Again, be careful with these, but I like them for the long-term portfolio. INTC back down at a dip by opportunity, as well as AMD. But overall, guys, that is what I got for you for today's video. Hope you enjoyed watching or found value out of the video. Make sure to check the top link in the description to come see my trades as soon as I enter them. Let's talk stocks and crypto together all day long with the best, most amazing family. That is for the Discord server. You also have access to dark pool trade alerts, insider news, market news, analyst upgrades, and more. All that other stuff for a cheap value. The second link in the description under the Discord link is for Moomoo. It's a free broker. You can get up to 30 free stocks, each valued up to $2,000 per stock, as well as earn 8.1% APY on your uninvested cash. Get access to level 2 order book data for free, trade options, go long, go short, view other exchanges, and more as a retail trader. So don't sleep on that. Those are the top 2 links in the description of the video. That is it. I love you all. God bless. Lottery Socks out.